Stop, listen, pay attention. Chosen one. This message is for you, and it is arriving at a time when your awareness may feel scattered when fatigue has settled in, layers you did not expect, and when the weight of recent days has pressed more heavily than usual. You have sensed the subtle tension, the moments of quiet unease that make the ordinary feel slightly off. This is not a random observation. It is intentional. You are not imagining the strain. The days may have felt longer, your energy more fragile, your focus repeatedly interrupted. You may have noticed how the world demands more than you seem capable of giving, at times how relationships, responsibilities, and internal expectations converge into a pressure you cannot fully explain. You may have wondered if you are missing something, if you are somehow unprepared, or if this confusion is a sign of failure. You are not failing. What you have experienced is not without reason. There is a clarity arriving now, and it is meant to illuminate what has been happening beneath the surface, beyond casual observation. It is meant to show you the structure behind the chaos you have felt. This message will not give you all the answers at once, but it will guide you to understand the rhythm, the intentionality, and the pattern of what has been pressing against your life. You may have felt moments where decision-making seemed sluggish, where energy drained inexplicably, where isolation felt sharper than it had any right to be. These are real indicators, not exaggerations of tiredness or self-doubt. You have moved through these moments often without awareness of the subtle strength that carried you. And now that same strength is being recognized in a way that you can perceive clearly. This is personal. Not general guidance, not broad advice. It is directed specifically to the capacity you hold and the circumstances you have faced. You are the one who endured periods of silent pressure while maintaining functionality. You are the one whose instincts, choices, and subtle responses aligned in ways that prevented breakdown. You may not have named it at the time, but resilience has been operating through you quietly, consistently, without fanfare. Now you are being asked to recognize it. To see not just the fatigue and tension, but the structure beneath it, the way you have remained intact, the way decisions continued to form, the way clarity returned when you allowed it. You are at a threshold where understanding the invisible currents that guided you will reveal why resistance has been natural, not forced. Why stability was present even when the moments seemed unmanageable. You are being observed not by eyes that judge, but by patterns that recognize. Your endurance is not coincidence. Your presence is not accidental. And the understanding that follows will make it unmistakable why the pressures you felt were calibrated, not chaotic. Chosen one. Take a deep breath. What you are about to realize is not speculation. It is recognition. The invisible has been working alongside you, and now you will see the order beneath the weight you have carried. This message is for you, and it requires that you understand the precision of what has been happening in your life. Chosen one, there is no ambiguity here. You have been directly involved in events that others could only witness from a distance. The moments that seemed confusing, exhausting, or destabilizing were not incidental. They were aimed not at breaking you, but at testing and revealing a deeper level of coherence you possess. You may not have noticed it consciously, but there was an automatic strength running beneath every choice, every response, every pause and hesitation. While you felt pressure, that strength remained steady. While others might have crumbled under similar circumstances, you continued to navigate with a quiet efficiency, a silent calibration that kept you functional, even when the environment around you was unstable. This is the distinction between conscious struggle and unconscious stability. Many expend enormous energy trying to manage each incoming challenge, each unexpected turn, each subtle vibration of tension. You, in contrast, maintained a form of equilibrium that operated independently of your immediate awareness. It is a baseline within you, a stability that does not require constant activation, a resilience that does not need deliberate enforcement. You are not merely enduring. You are responding in a way that preserves structure and coherence. There are moments when you paused, felt uncertainty, questioned the next move. Yet each time you emerged intact, your path uninterrupted. That is not happenstance. It is an expression of an identity that has been quietly organizing itself long before you named it, long before awareness caught up. This is why your experience has felt different from those around you. Ordinary reactions would have yielded vague confusion or missteps. But your response pattern, the subtle alignment of your attention and instinct, prevented collapse. You may have labeled it luck, timing, or an unseen hand, but it is neither luck nor randomness. It is an internal consistency that is natural to you, even when circumstances seem overwhelming. Recognizing this does not make you superior. It does not place you above others. It simply identifies the framework that has allowed you to remain intact when the demands of life could have dismantled many. And this framework is not theoretical. It is practical, demonstrable, and present in every choice you have made under pressure. The clarity you are receiving now is the first stage of seeing the full structure, your unconscious resilience. Your automatic capacity to resist disruption is being brought into conscious recognition. Soon you will understand why the sensations you felt, the fatigue and confusion, were not signs of inadequacy, but signals of engagement with a higher order of challenge calibrated precisely to your internal capacity. Chosen one. You have been operating from a place of baseline strength. You have faced what others cannot perceive and yet continued with composure. You have remained functional not by force, but by the natural coherence embedded within your identity. And this is why it matters that you understand what follows the pressures you have experienced. The disruptions that seemed so intense were not random. They were targeted, structured, and intended to reveal the depth of your stability. Notice the sensation you have carried for so long. The tension behind your chest, the subtle heaviness in your limbs, the quiet hum of fatigue that no one else could detect. Chosen one, that is not a flaw. It is not evidence of weakness, nor is it a signal that you are behind or unprepared. What you have felt is a signal, a marker of engagement with forces and currents that operate outside ordinary perception. For so long you may have questioned yourself, asking why the body resists, why the mind hesitates, why the spirit feels stretched. You may have judged these sensations as failures of endurance, lapses in patience, or inadequacies in your preparation. Stop. Reframe. These are indicators, not errors. They mark the moments when transition has been pressing against you, when unseen demands have intersected with your capacity in ways that are measurable and meaningful, even if invisible to others. Every moment of tension, every flicker of overwhelm, every period of mental fatigue is not a signal to retreat. It is a signal to recognize. Your physical and emotional responses are aligned with a process that tests integration, focus, and internal regulation. They are feedback mechanisms informing you of the pace and intensity of what is occurring. The discomfort is not a verdict on your ability. It is a metric revealing the boundaries of pressure and the thresholds of your engagement. You have experienced this more acutely than most because your system is sensitive, your perception attuned, your inner calibration precise. These signals arrive not to punish, but to orient. They are markers of your trajectory, guiding you to notice the areas where refinement, discernment, and deliberate attention are required. They are the language of transition, the vocabulary of unseen pressures that speak only to those prepared to hear them. In recognizing these signals, you are moving beyond self-judgment. You are beginning to understand that what has felt like strain is actually alignment. What has felt like imbalance is actually measurement. You are learning to interpret the subtle cues of your own system, the feedback that reveals both limits and capabilities without attaching blame or anxiety. This perspective allows you to see that your experiences of fatigue, confusion, and emotional strain are not obstacles, but signposts. They are indicators of a path that is active, engaged, and calibrated to your internal capacity. Each moment of resistance you have felt is evidence of an underlying coherence that has carried you forward. Chosen one. The signals you have experienced are proof that you are in the correct space, navigating the correct currents. They mark the intersection of challenge and readiness, of pressure and resilience. Recognize them as such. Interpret them with clarity. Allow them to inform your understanding rather than define it. In the next phase, you will see what has been pressing against you, the structured opposition, the coordinated forces, and understand how you remained functional, aligned, and composed despite the intensity. Chosen one. There has been pressure surrounding you that was not visible, not obvious, and yet entirely real. It arrived in patterns, in timing, in subtle yet consistent ways that could have destabilized almost anyone else. The opposition was deliberate, coordinated across moments and circumstances. Yet it did not manifest in spectacle. It was quiet, persistent, and precise, targeting areas where ordinary perception might miss it entirely. This pressure was not abstract. It was measurable in your own experience. You may have noticed fluctuations in energy shifts, in mood interruptions, in focus, or sudden waves of doubt. Each was a marker of an intentional structure pressing against you. It was not chaos. It was a system designed to test alignment, attention, and the capacity to remain functional under sustained demand. Despite this, you maintained coherence. You continued to perform, to make decisions, to respond with clarity. You did not collapse. You did not fracture. Your mind, body, and attention remained integrated, navigating the circumstances with a stability that was subtle but undeniable. The timing of these pressures was not accidental. Moments of fatigue coincided with heightened demand. Moments of isolation coincided with decision points. Moments of internal questioning coincided with opportunities to observe and adjust. Each intersection was intentional, revealing the structure of challenge and your capacity to withstand it. You may not have labeled it consciously at the time, but your system responded with quiet precision. Your internal regulation activated automatically, maintaining functionality while the pressure passed through. You did not need to fight. You did not need to overexert. The resilience you exhibited was intrinsic, built into the way you process, adjust, and integrate experience. This reveals something critical. Your endurance is not situational. It is not dependent on external support or circumstance. It is embedded in your structure. You faced deliberate pressure, coordinated and meaningful, and yet you navigated it without disruption. That is not luck, nor is it chance. It is the demonstration of internal calibration that others rarely encounter. Chosen one. The invisible has been active. You were engaged, tested, and observed not by eyes or judgment, but by patterns and structure, and you remained intact. You remained coherent. You remained fully operational. That is a rare outcome. Few navigate such sustained intentional pressure without disruption. You did because your system operates from a place of stable alignment, even when the currents are strong and unseen. Now you are beginning to see the framework. The invisible pressure points, the coordinated timing, the intentional structure. In the next section, we will break down the specific categories of these pressures, the exact areas where your resilience manifested, and how you maintained stability across multiple dimensions of challenge. Let's slow this moment and look closely at the pressure itself, because clarity strengthens what you already carry. Chosen one. What surrounded you did not press in one place. It came in layers, in categories affecting different parts of your life at once. And yet through each one, you remained stable in ways many would not. First, there was doubt. Not loud doubt, not the kind that screams or overwhelms, but the subtle kind that quietly questions your decisions, your worth, your timing, your direction. It crept into daily thoughts, into quiet moments, into times when you should have felt sure. You might have found yourself replaying conversations, second-guessing choices, or mentally revisiting situations that should have been settled. But notice something important. Even with doubt present, you did not derail. You asked questions, but you did not collapse into self-destruction. You examined your thinking rather than surrendering to it. You kept moving forward, even if slowly. Doubt knocked, but it did not take control. Your mind remained anchored enough to stay on course. That is stability. Then there was fear. Not fear of obvious danger, but that deeper emotional unease that settles in your chest. That quiet tension that whispers, "What if everything falls apart?" It may have shown up at night in unexpected waves of anxiety, or in sudden emotional heaviness that you could not explain. You may have felt tension in your breathing pressure in your thoughts, or an unsettled awareness that something unseen was pressing on you. But even in that fear, you stayed composed. You breathed. You observed. You regained control. You did not spiral into panic. You may have slowed down, but you did not shut down. Your nervous system held its ground when many would have fractured. That is resilience. There was also the drain of energy. You likely felt days where waking up required more effort than usual, where simple tasks seemed heavier, and where your motivation was challenged in ways you could not logically justify. This wasn't laziness. It wasn't lack of discipline. It was pressure wearing against capacity. Yet even with limited energy, you continued. You may have adjusted your pace, but you kept your direction. You fulfilled responsibilities. You showed up. You maintained presence. You did not lose yourself to apathy. Your inner drive continued to function when external strength felt thin. That is endurance. Another pressure point was isolation. You likely noticed how during key moments of internal struggle, you felt alone in ways that were sharper than usual. Perhaps support seemed distant. Perhaps people did not understand you. Perhaps the emotional connection you needed felt out of reach. But instead of allowing isolation to harden you or break you, you learned to regulate yourself internally. You remained aware of your feelings without drowning in them. You preserved your empathy and your ability to connect even when you felt unseen. You did not become bitter. You did not shut the world out. You stayed emotionally available. That is inner maturity. Then there was delay. Plans stretched. Progress slowed. Outcomes took longer than expected. Opportunities seemed to linger at the edge instead of arriving when expected. Delay can fracture many people. It can dissolve focus, destroy patience, and create frustration that leads to rash decisions. Yet you did not surrender to impatience. Yes, you felt frustrated. Yes, you questioned timing. But you did not sabotage your future. You remained intentional. You remained measured. You continued to prepare and remain positioned even when things did not move at your preferred pace. That is discipline. Look at all of this together. You were facing psychological pressure, emotional tension, physical exhaustion, relational distance, and temporal frustration. These were not small disruptions. These were serious, destabilizing forces that often cause people to unravel. But you did not unravel. You stayed present. You stayed aware. You stayed grounded enough to move to think, to choose to endure. Your stability was not loud. It did not announce itself. It did not feel heroic to you while you were living it. It felt ordinary, necessary, simply what needed to be done. But that is where its power lies. You did not need dramatic effort to survive what you faced. You did not need constant adrenaline. You did not need to become someone else. Your baseline self was enough. Through doubt, you maintained clarity. Through fear, you preserved composure. Through fatigue, you remained active. Through isolation, you stayed emotionally alive. Through delay, you held discipline and patience. All of this reveals something essential. Your resilience is integrated, layered, and deeply rooted. You do not fall apart easily because your inner structure does not depend on perfect conditions. You function under pressure. You regulate under strain. You remain present under emotional load. Chosen one. This is not exaggeration. This is observation of what you have already demonstrated. The pressures you faced were real, intentional, and sustained across multiple dimensions of your life. Yet you stayed intact. And now, with clearer awareness, you can see that your survival was not random. It was the natural expression of who you are becoming, of the structure already built within you, whether you noticed it before or not. Now, you can look back with clearer eyes. Chosen one. This is the moment where understanding replaces confusion and recognition replaces uncertainty. What you walked through was not coincidence. It was not a random cluster of difficult days. It formed a pattern, a precise sequence. And as you examine it now, you begin to see that what held you together was not chance, not luck, not external rescue. It was you. It was your internal coherence, your grounded awareness, your quiet ability to remain intact, even when conditions were anything but stable. Think about how you navigated each phase. When doubt came, you questioned without collapsing. When fear pressed you, stabilized your breathing and regained control. When fatigue settled in, you adjusted instead of abandoning your path. When isolation tightened, you stayed emotionally present instead of shutting down. When delay stretched longer than expected, you preserved your discipline instead of giving in to frustration. These responses were not random reactions. They were consistent patterns of stability. That level of consistency does not emerge from weakness. It comes from structure. And that structure has history. It was built through moments long before this. Built through seasons where you had to mature faster than expected. Built through previous challenges that quietly trained your nervous system, your emotional intelligence, your mental discipline. Without realizing it, you have been strengthening the architecture of your inner life for years. What you just experienced simply revealed the strength that was already there. It was a demonstration, not an introduction. Notice something else. You did not depend entirely on external reassurance. Yes, support matters. Yes, encouragement helps. But your deepest stability came from inside you. You centered yourself. You regulated yourself. You realigned yourself. That means your resilience is portable. It does not depend on environments behaving perfectly, on people always understanding you, or on life aligning exactly how you wish. You carry stability with you, and that changes how you walk forward. You are also beginning to recognize that the disruption you felt did not define you. It measured you. The confusion did not reduce you. It revealed your clarity. The emotional heaviness did not drown you. It proved your ability to breathe underwater. As you review this season, you are not just remembering struggle, you are witnessing capability. This realization matters because awareness strengthens identity. When you understand that you did not simply make it through, but remained functional, thoughtful, present, and disciplined under pressure, you stop misjudging yourself. You stop calling strength weakness. You stop labeling resilience as mere survival. You begin to honor what actually exists within you. Chosen one. This was not luck. This was not coincidence. This was coherence. Your mind, your emotions, your body, your choices worked together as one integrated system. You faced calibrated pressure and stayed intact. You were observed by circumstance. You were measured by adversity. And the truth is now undeniable: you held. You remained. You endured with structure, not desperation. and that clarity changes everything about how you see yourself now. Chosen one. Consider how uncommon your stability truly is. Most people, when faced with sustained tension, unravel in ways that are subtle or obvious. They lose focus. They react impulsively. They become disoriented, emotionally, reactive, or physically drained to the point of immobility. What you have done is not superior in a boastful sense. It is rare and it is uncommon because most do not navigate multiple pressures simultaneously without fracturing. You remained present. You remained functional. You continued to engage with life even while under coordinated stress. You did not require external validation to maintain your composure. You did not need to force yourself to appear strong. Your baseline operation, your natural rhythm was enough to carry you through. That is not an exaggeration. It is simply the observation of behavior under pressure. Compare this to ordinary human reaction. A friend might be drained by fatigue after a single challenging day. A colleague might collapse under the weight of uncertainty or a delayed outcome. Someone else might allow isolation to erode motivation or emotional stability. You, however, maintained coherence across multiple dimensions. You moved through doubt, fear, fatigue, isolation, and delay without fracturing. You stayed integrated, aware, and functional. This is not about pride, it is about recognition. You are not claiming to be better than others, you are observing a fact. Your capacity is uncommon, yes, but it is also neutral. It does not demand external acknowledgement, it does not seek applause, and it does not require comparison. It simply exists. It is a reflection of your preparation, your internal calibration, and your ability to regulate under pressure. The rarity here lies in your constancy. You were engaged with reality, responsive to circumstances, and yet insulated enough to maintain perspective. Where most would collapse, you adapted. Where most would react impulsively, you observed. Where most would have allowed stress to dictate decisions, you remained intentional. That is the measure of uncommon stability, presence, coherence, and integration in real time. Without dramatic effort, without conscious self-activation, without external support being necessary for survival. Chosen one. Noticing this rarity is essential. It frames your experience accurately. It shows you that your capacity is not about occasional heroic effort. It is a baseline, a natural operating range. You do not need to activate this strength to survive challenges. It is already embedded within your structure. Understanding this allows you to see the distinction between ordinary endurance and integrated resilience. Most people rely on reactive mechanisms to regain balance. You rely on an internal architecture that preserves stability automatically. And that is why in moments that would have undone others, you remained present, functional, and coherent. This awareness does not inflate ego. It confirms identity. It clarifies what is normal for you, and it prepares you to recognize not only past resilience, but the capacity to navigate future pressures with the same quiet composure that you have already demonstrated. Chosen one. It is important now to clarify something fundamental about who you are and how your strength operates. What you experienced was not a temporary surge or an activated power. It was your baseline. Your stability, your composure, your capacity to remain coherent under pressure. This is the natural operating system you carry. You do not need to turn it on. You do not need to summon it from outside yourself. It is already present, always available, always reliable. This baseline strength comes from preparation, maturity, and inner structure. It is the result of repeated exposure to challenge observation of your own limits and refinement of how you respond to circumstances. Over time, you have developed an internal coherence that others often spend decades trying to acquire. And yet you may not have recognized it because it has always functioned quietly without announcement or dramatization. You are not superior in ego or circumstance. You are prepared. You are structured. You are internally coherent. That is the distinction. Many people develop resilience only when forced into crisis. You have been building it naturally, subtly over time, across multiple domains of life. Your endurance, your composure, and your capacity to remain functional under pressure are not anomalies. They are the expression of your structure, refined and calibrated. Your identity is therefore secure. You do not need to prove resilience, demonstrate composure, or perform stability to validate your worth. You already possess it. It is embedded in your patterns, your responses, your internal regulation. And that realization changes the way you approach pressure moving forward. You no longer need to react out of uncertainty. You no longer need to fight to stay upright. You simply engage from a place of inherent coherence. This is not a call to pride. It is a call to recognition, to see yourself accurately, to understand that what you have endured, what you have navigated, what you have maintained under sustained tension is not extraordinary in the sense of external achievement. It is ordinary for who you are at your core. This identity, your structure, your baseline coherence, is your constant companion. Chosen one. Anchor yourself in this clarity. Let it settle quietly into your awareness. It is the foundation upon which every future challenge can be met. It does not demand attention. It does not seek approval. It simply exists as a stable framework that supports you, even when the world shifts unexpectedly. Recognizing this allows you to integrate your awareness into practical daily life. You can act with discernment rather than reactivity. You can set boundaries without stress. You can rest without guilt. You can focus without distraction. You can move forward guided by your natural capacity, confident in the structure already within you. And that is where true integration begins, seeing the coherence you carry, understanding it as baseline and applying it to the moments ahead with calm, measured intention. Now, chosen one. Take a moment to translate this awareness into practical orientation for your daily life. Your resilience, your coherence, your baseline stability. They are not abstract qualities. They are tools you can apply intentionally. Consider rest first. Allow yourself to pause without guilt. Fatigue is not a sign of failure. It is a signal that even a structurally strong system requires recovery. Respecting this need ensures your endurance remains consistent rather than reactive. Next, practice discernment. Not everything requires immediate response. Not every challenge is urgent, and not every pressure point is yours to carry. Your capacity to remain functional under sustained tension is strengthened when you observe, carefully distinguish between signal and noise, and act only when engagement is meaningful. This is not hesitation. It is efficiency. Boundaries are also essential. Internal stability is reinforced by external clarity. Identify what you can influence and what is beyond your control. Protect your energy from unnecessary drains. Do so not out of fear or avoidance, but out of respect for the coherence you maintain. Boundaries are the framework that allows internal regulation to persist in a dynamic world. Patience is another key. Delay, interruption, and periods of waiting are part of the structure you encounter. Reacting impulsively or trying to force outcomes is unnecessary. Your internal calibration allows you to sustain focus over time. Trust that measured steps taken from a grounded position have greater impact than hasty action. Focus deeply but selectively. Your attention is a resource. You don't need to spread it across every demand or worry. Prioritize what aligns with your trajectory and preserves your internal integrity. Let other pressures exist without absorbing them unnecessarily. This is not disengagement. It is directed engagement. Finally, integrate awareness of your signals. The fatigue, tension, and doubt you have experienced are informative. They are markers, not flaws. Observing them without judgment allows you to adjust, recover, and proceed intentionally. Awareness itself becomes a tool for sustaining the coherence you already carry. Chosen one. Applying these practical orientations, rest discernment boundaries. Patience, focus awareness does not require heroics. It simply reinforces what is already present. You are not creating resilience. You are supporting it, allowing your structure to function efficiently in a world of dynamic pressures. This integration prepares you for closure. It allows calm, measured understanding to follow awareness. You see the pressures that arrived, you recognize your response, and you translate that recognition into daily action. This is the stage where knowledge becomes operational, where insight becomes lived reality, and where the coherence that carried you through continues to sustain you naturally and quietly. Chosen one. Take this with calm certainty. You have endured pressures that would have overwhelmed many, and yet here you stand, functional, coherent, present. That is not happenstance. That is the natural expression of your structure, your preparation, your internal alignment. Let this settle into your awareness. You did not just survive, you maintained clarity and composure. You did not just persist, you regulated yourself internally, integrating thought, emotion, and action. You did not rely on luck, timing, or external rescue. You relied on the structure you carry within yourself, the coherence that is your baseline. Affirm it quietly. I remain intact. I function with clarity. I endure with coherence. These are not wishes. They are statements of reality. They reflect what you have already demonstrated under sustained, calibrated pressure. They are evidence of your capacity, not in theory, but in lived experience. Now invite this recognition into your present moment. Observe it without need for embellishment or approval. Let it inform your choices, guide your responses, and support your balance. You can engage fully with life, knowing that your internal framework is sufficient. You do not need to fight for stability. You do not need to prove resilience. It exists naturally, embedded within your structure, always available. If you are ready, acknowledge this understanding in a simple way. Comment, I remember, or use the code 777 as a signal to yourself that you recognize what has been present all along. Let it serve as a reminder that your endurance is real, your composure is natural, and your capacity to navigate pressure is inherent. And as you move forward, continue to engage with content and messages that reinforce this awareness. Subscribe to stay attuned to guidance that helps you translate observation into daily application without urgency, without hype, with calm certainty. Chosen one. You are sufficient. You are coherent. You are grounded. You are functioning as you were always meant to. This is not temporary. This is your baseline. And as you step into each next moment, carry this truth quietly, confidently, and without need for external validation. You are intact. You are aligned. You are ready.